What I'm about to say is drawn from the British experience, but I believe there are general lessons for us all. In the UK, some young men find it hard to identify with the traditional Islam practiced at home by their parents, whose customs can seem staid when transplanted to modern Western countries. But these young men also find it hard to identify with Britain too, because we've allowed the weakening of our collective identity. Under the doctrine of state multiculturalism, we've encouraged different cultures to live separate lives apart from each other and apart from the mainstream. We failed to provide a vision of society to which they feel they want to belong. We've even tolerated these segregated communities behaving in ways that run completely counter to our values. So when a white person holds objectionable views, racist views for instance, we rightly condemn them. But when equally unacceptable views or practices come from someone who isn't white, we've been too cautious, frankly even fearful, to stand up to them. This hands-off tolerance has only served to reinforce the sense that not enough is shared. And this all leaves some young Muslims feeling rootless. And the search for something to belong to and something to believe in can lead them to this extremist ideology. Now, for sure, they don't turn into terrorists overnight. But what we see, and what we see in so many European countries, is a process of radicalisation.
Say to you, keep marching, keep campaigning, keep the faith, because we can have hope. We can stop Brexit. We must stop Brexit. So let's stop Brexit and build a brighter future.
I became Prime Minister in 2007. We were out of Iraq by April 2009, and I told George Bush we were not going to put more troops in, we were coming out. I thought we'd become the occupiers and not the liberators, and we were out 3 years before the Americans. But I've had to look at that decision again.
Because you voted for the Iraq
Yes,
war,
of course.
Right? I mean, and in the book you make it clear that you
I think we made a mistake.
Will you make it clear you don't think you got enough information?
No,
the Americans withheld information.
I think the Americans knew that he didn't have these weapons. Certainly in the Pentagon they knew, and they didn't tell us. And, you know, Chilcot did a great inquiry, but he wasn't able to look at the American evidence because the Americans didn't really cooperate with his inquiry. And now when I look at the American evidence, they didn't worry that he didn't have weapons. They were going to go for him anyway.
They were into regime change.
They wanted the regime to change and Saddam out. We had to have a justification if we were ever going to take action, and they had information that I believe they didn't communicate.
Do you feel conned?
I feel misled. I think that's the best word. We were not just misinformed, we were misled by the Pentagon. And I feel the basis of our decision. You see, I talked to the MI6 at the time, and I'm be honest about it. They said, look, they almost knew the address and the place and the street where these weapons were. And when you get that level of intelligence, which you didn't have at the time, but we were getting that, you have to believe what they say.
Do you see
but
now...
afterwards, you find the Americans knew what we didn't know.
Do you see now a direct link between what happened then and the rise of Islamist fundamentalism and ISIS?
I think it's complicated, but right across the Middle East, you're right, Susanna. Iraq falling apart, which of course it has done. Syria with the civil war. Remember, we